Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to Saturday Morning Cartooning. Today we will be discussing Spider-Man. Before we get into the meat of the discussion, please take this time to like, subscribe, check your seatbelt. There are emergency exits on both sides. Please go to patreon.com/destinycomics. If you love what we do here, you can support me there, or you can go to the website, link down below, and purchase any one of my books. I have several graphic novels, comic books, short story anthologies, horror anthologies, even a novella. You know, that's right, I wrote a book without pictures. So all that's available on the website and also available through Amazon.com. If you buy the books directly from me, they will come signed and maybe even with a little sketch or two. So thank you for that and any and all support. Also, if you're interested in checking out my webcomic from Webtoons, you can go to webtoon.com, or you can download their app, Webtoon. And my webcomic is Galahad the Fallen. It is knights in shining armor. It is about Galahad post the fall of Camelot. He decides to go on a revenge quest to hunt down Lancelot, blaming him for the fall of Camelot. And notably, he is intending to unalive his own father in Lancelot. So it is Galahad versus Lancelot in a post-Camelot world. Please like, subscribe, and I hope you enjoy what we're doing here. I hope you enjoy Saturday Morning Cartooning, where we take the time to talk about the long forgotten tradition of Saturday morning cartoons and what they meant to us, and taking some time to do a little cartooning and illustrating and drawing. Today we are drawing Spider-Man. Obviously I was enthralled and in love with the 90s Spider-Man cartoon. That was my introduction to the much bigger world of Spider-Man. I absolutely loved this series. 5 seasons. It adapted several major storylines. It introduced the concept of the Spider-Verse. It does a beautiful adaptation of Secret Wars. It is just a beautiful Spider-Man show. Incredibly well illustrated. Incredibly, the art is amazing. It holds up to this day. And one of the important things about this show, and I want to take some time to discuss, is it starts media res. It starts with Spider-Man already being Spider-Man. We don't take the time to cover the origin. We don't even talk about the origin. We're not even dealing with a high school Peter Parker. We're dealing with a college Peter Parker. This Peter Parker is struggling to pay bills, to learn what it's like to be an adult and contribute to the household while living with his Aunt May, who's struggling, and it's a different, Spider-Man. It's a more mature Spider-Man. Saturday morning cartoons in the 90s were not so concerned about age demographics, that they knew you can have an older hero for your kids to look up to. I always loved this version of Spider-Man. Yes, he's still struggling. Yes, he has all the problems that Peter Parker has, the love life, the work issues, the brilliant but lazy tagline that's thrown onto Peter because he's too busy doing Spider-Man work to really focus on his studies. So, but this cartoon was very important to me. This was must-see TV when I was a kid. You did not miss Spider-Man. It was very important. This was also early introduction to cumulative storytelling, where you if you missed one episode, you were screwed, because it all ties together. It's all building towards something. The first episode, of course, is an introduction to the Lizard and has horror themes and but what I love about it is, it's several seasons before we even get into the origin of Spider-Man. They do a flashback episode based off of a Spider-Man annual with a sick little girl, and he tells her the origin, and we get the flashback. But the show was just so well written. They adapted the source material so beautifully that it became the benchmark for a lot of Spider-Man media moving forward. The next Spider-Man cartoon is going to do the exact opposite of what this cartoon did, just to be different. I mean, this cartoon was perfect. It hit all the marks. Even in the later seasons, we're going to get introduced to, this show was my introduction to Blade, because I believe he shows up in the cartoon before we get the Blade movie in '99. So this show was incredibly important to me. It was fundamentally foundational in my nerdom, as far as what Spider-Man is, what Spider-Man can be. The O. Henry style storytelling of okay, if something good is going for Spider-Man, it's got to somehow come around and destroy Peter's life, or vice versa. And it's just brilliant storytelling. Avi Arad, who is the executive producer and the genius behind a lot of these Marvel cartoons and shows and movies, doesn't get enough credit. Stan Lee does play a part in this, but I think Avi Arad and the team that he built is the reason why we have the Marvel Cinematic Universe today, because he proved on a Saturday morning scale that these concepts and these characters work. Ant-Man was on the Avengers cartoon long before he ever had his own movie. Avengers Unlimited, I think, or whatever that Avengers cartoon was. So, I'm just saying, this cartoon in particular was incredibly fundamental to me. It had all the toys. Early on in my childhood, I was doing stop motion animation with my action figures. Take a photo, move the figure, take a photo, move the figure. These characters were incredibly important to me. And then this is something Marvel did at the time. I don't think they've done since, but they released several CDs that had a little animation feature, and it taught you a little bit how to animate. But more importantly for me, It had, which that was actually a fun thing. I spent hours, making Spider-Man walk and jump and learning, the finer points of early 90s animation. But for me, the most important thing was on these CDs, it had readable version of the comic books. And, it had the early Green Goblin stuff. And I was originally confused because in the cartoon, the Hobgoblin shows up first. That was highly contested. Apparently, showrunners switched mid pre-production, and the toys for the Hobgoblin were already in production, and so they had to use the Hobgoblin, even though in the comics the Green Goblin does come first and is a much more important character. This show does make the Hobgoblin a little bit more of a threat than he is in the comics, but hey, that's adaptation. We also get a beautiful Mark Hamill does the voice of the Hobgoblin, and he does a great job. There's something about Luke Skywalker playing villains that just seems to work. But this Saturday morning cartoon meant the world to me. I still have several of the action figures. I have a couple hanging up on my wall. But for this sketch, I decided I have a couple action figures floating around my office. And they are my childhood toys. They're the stuff I played with when I was a kid. And they had a Spider-Man damaged figure. So the idea, like his costume's all torn and ripped, and you can see his hair coming through the mask. And it also came with like a bag, a backpack made of webbing. I don't remember if you could open it or if there was anything. I think there was a camera. But those items are lost to the sands of time. But my Spider-Man figure, I decided to I'll use him as reference. Wherever there's a tear in the costume, I'll throw a tear on the sketch, and I'm not necessarily doing the 90s comic model, but I am heavily inspired by my action figure from that series. Again, I love the 90s Spider-Man. And I was a kid who, before the 90s Spider-Man, I had seen Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I had seen, maybe one or two episodes of the original just Spider-Man cartoon, with the amazing theme song. But for me, this 90s series is the end-all be-all. It is brilliant. It's a shame we didn't get another season, a sixth season. They built up Madam Web, and we got a really good Spider-Verse in this series. Madam Web famously was voiced by Stan Lee's wife in this series. The Shocker wasn't an option. Not Shocker, Electro, because he was tied up in the James Cameron live-action Spider-Man movie. But by the fifth season, they just let the rights go on that, and we eventually did get Electro. But every major villain is in the series. Chameleon, the Goblins. You get the Return of the Goblin arc. It's just brilliant. And I know I should try to find some other adjectives. I will say we get 2 Spider-Man cameos in X-Men 97, the X-Men reboot series that we got on Disney Plus. Thank you, whoever did that. Just thank you. It was nice to know that my Spider-Man is still out there in the multiverse, you know, swinging webs and saving people, and it's nice to know that my guy's still out there. When I read the comics, I hear this voice. I hear Christopher Daniel Barnes. He's my Spider-Man. He's my guy. He was the guy holding the torch up when I was a kid. And yes, I still hear Ed Asner when I read James Jonah Jameson. Like, these are the voices that I hear in my head when I'm reading these characters in the books. You know, the reason why in the background I went with Carnage and Venom. I've told this story before, but I hate drawing Venom. I screwed it up one time at a comic book convention, and I'm still living it down. You know, hey, drawing on, you know, on the fly in front of people without reference, sometimes it goes great, and sometimes it doesn't. Maybe your memory's not the best. So I screwed up Venom horribly, and yeah, it's not my favorite. I get PTSD every time I try to draw Venom, but I'll figure it out. But I went with Carnage and Venom because also Maximum Carnage and Spider-Man and Venom were two huge pivotal points of my childhood. A few years ago, I went back and reread Maximum Carnage. Parts of it hold up, parts of it don't. The Todd McFarlane art really holds up. But that was the storyline that really elevated Carnage as a serious threat, a major player, and it you know, got a video game adaptation. In that video game, you know, the cartridge itself was red, so you knew we were dealing with serious stuff. This was not your normal everyday kid affair. You know, the video game cartridge was red, so you knew you were, you know, they meant business. I preferred Spider-Man and Venom. Separation Anxiety. That's what it was. Separation Anxiety. I preferred that video game because I think it was a much better fighter. I like the two-player aspect. You know, I spent a lot more time playing Separation Anxiety than I ever spent playing Maximum Carnage. Although the opening cutscene to Maximum Carnage on a 16-bit cartridge still holds up. Like, I remember being impressed, like, whoa. You know, video games at that era didn't do dramatic, big opening sequences like that, but they pulled out all the bells and whistles for that game for the time. And then, of course, the you know, PlayStation and N64 got their own adaptation of the 90s cartoon, and I've spent way too much time of my life playing that game. I played it over and over and over again. You know, because it would be years before we get the Tobey Maguire games and the open sandlot environment that kind of comes with Spider-Man games now is just standard. You know, that wasn't the way a lot of games back then operated. I still have my copy of Spider-Man X-Men, and I have played that opening level of Spider-Man hundreds of times. Never once beaten that game. The second you get to Gambit, I die horribly. You know, the Marvel X-Men game is fun. And I love the Cyclops level. I love the Wolverine level. The Storm level gives me anxiety because it's an underwater level, which is fair. Give the claustrophobic character a underwater level. But I've just never been able to get past the Gambit level. But I've played that game so many times. Spider-Man was incredibly important to me on so many levels. The morality of doing the right thing and still getting screwed over, I think, is an important lesson to learn, because you do the right thing because it's the right thing, not because you expect something in return. And that is the lesson of Spider-Man. Yes, with great power comes great responsibility, but the true lesson of Spider-Man is, I'm going to do what's right even if it hurts, because it's the right thing to do, and I'm not going to be the reason that people get hurt. The Spider-Man character, I think, is one of the most important characters in comic book history. I grew up with this character, with this cartoon, and yeah, it did have a huge impact on me. It had a huge impact on anyone my age. It was a huge part of pop culture. The toy line, the video games, the comics, this 90s cartoon was everywhere. And I will say this, I went to college because of Spider-Man. Being dyslexic and learning how to read with comics, like, Spider-Man made college look fun. Yes, he was a horrible student. He was always running off in the middle of class to save the world, or he was utilizing the computer lab way too often to solve his problems and stuff like that.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Oh, I said the wrong word. But it was, as a young reader, it made me think, oh, college is fun. College is cool. Like, the only reason why I went to college in the first place was because Spider-Man. It made college look like an adventure. And I thought that was fun. And I enjoyed my time in college. I really did. But again, I only went because as a young kid, I thought, oh, this is the thing Spider-Man does. Which is why I think it's important that we move away from the high school era of Spider-Man and we focus more on a more mature Spider-Man. Hey, people of the interwebs. Real quick ad break. If you want to check out any of our amazing books, please go to our storefront, where you can purchase all of our books, including some without even pictures. Have access directly to our books. Also, a lot of our books are available on Amazon.com, and we just would appreciate the support as well. All books sold directly from the store will be signed. Support your local author. Give somebody don't make the character the same age as your target audience. Let this character be somebody they can look up to and admire. The Spider-Man universe is populated with such glorious irony the idea of Aunt May loves Peter Parker but hates Spider-Man, or Flash Thompson can't stand Peter Parker but loves Spider-Man. He's Peter Parker's own boss is always trying to destroy Spider-Man. His world is populated with such delicious irony that it's just a beautiful character study. And out of the Spider-Man toys I have, the one that I keep up on display is the battered, beaten up Spider-Man, because he's the one who's going to get up. He's the one that's going to keep going. He's the one who says, all right, let's, I can do this all day. Like, Spider-Man is just torn up, beaten up, battered, but he's going to get up and he's going to do the right thing because it's the right thing. And I enjoy this version of the character. My two favorite Spider-Man storylines are Spider-Man No More Dead, or No More Death, by Dan Slott, where he makes this vow of like, all right, I realize I cannot save everybody, but at least when I'm in the room, I'm so sick and tired of people dying on me that it's done. I'm not going to allow anyone to die near me ever again. And it leads to the whole like, no, he even means criminals. He's going to go out of his way to save criminals because he's just so fed up with death. And it has a beautiful dream sequence where you expect to see Uncle Ben or Gwen Stacy, but no, it shows Captain Stacy, Gwen Stacy's dad. And it's this beautiful moment, and I cried the first time I read it. Like, Dan Slott is one of the best comic book authors of our generation. I love Dan Slott. He is just so happy and so verbose that I find his writing to be incredibly comforting. He hits the right spots and at the same time is challenging the character, and you think, oh no, not that. And I have still in the box a Superior Spider-Man hanging in my office. There's not much wall space in here because I have a tiny office, but I have several art pieces that I really enjoy, some photos of my wife, and then I have a couple of comics hanging up, and a couple of action figures, and one of the action figures is a Disney Select exclusive, and it is the Superior Spider-Man, and I bought it from the Disney store. We went to the mall, and I actually got it there, and it just makes me smile. The plastic casing is starting to yellow. I don't know how to fix that. I'm not a big toy guy. I have a Zoom from Comic-Con exclusive hanging, and the plastic seems to be doing fine over there over Zoom. So I don't know what's going on with Spider-Man. But yeah, I love, Dan Slott's Spider-Man run makes me want to be a better writer. It's one of those things where I don't go back that often, but his stuff really does speak to me in a strong and profound way. The other Spider-Man story that if you're just getting into comics, I'm going to strongly recommend is Spider-Man Blue. it is this heartbreaking, beautiful story of Spider-Man as an adult, digging through and cleaning out the attic, and he stumbles upon these tapes of Gwen Stacy. And it's the proverbial shoebox of the old love. And the whole thing is just a flashback of the early Spider-Man stuff, him and Gwen, him and Mary Jane, and you get to revisit the death of Gwen Stacy through different eyes. And I don't want to spoil the ending if you've never read it, but it is a heartbreaker. It is one of those comics that I go back to and I reread every couple of years. And it's just beautiful. I think it's among some of the best comic book works of all time. I absolutely love Spider-Man Blue. When the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie came out, I saw that movie 9 times in theaters. Not exaggerating. I absolutely loved that first Tobey Maguire film. The second one's better. It is a much better, stronger Spider-Man story. But I paid to see that movie 9 times in theaters. And when the first Spider-Man movie came out, no one expected it to do financially what it had done. But it was the first comic book adaptation that respected the source material, that respected its fans. We weren't trying, it wasn't trying to, say, hey, how silly is this? I guess the Christopher Reeve Superman movie had done that years prior. But that was 78 or 77, 78. The Michael Keaton Batman films always kind of had a wink of like, isn't this silly? And that kind of hurt. So as much as I love the Michael Keaton stuff, it is, not treating the source material as respectfully as I would like. The Tobey Maguire Spider-Man film is just brilliant, and it's a masterclass on like, hey, maybe you should treat this stuff a little bit more seriously, and maybe the fans who have been waiting their entire lives to see this stuff adapted seriously, they might just come out and not only watch it once in theaters, but they might watch it 9 times in theaters, because we'd been waiting for this for so long. You don't get to the current Spider-Man movies, and it's also something Sony could learn from with their failed Madam Web, Morbius, Kraven the Hunter nonsense. Like, just treat the source material with respect, and the people who have been buying these books their whole lives will come out and support these movies. But you have to, we have to be like, it can't be a cash grab. You have to, show us that you're serious, that you mean this, that this is, somebody like, for it took, somebody treating this material respectfully to get those movies made. And it's just, the Spider-Man movies that we're getting now are fine, but Sony is definitely just sees this as a cash grab and doesn't treat the source material with respect. Madam Web shows that, and it's a shame because these characters deserve better. They deserve better adaptations. I've seen better adaptations, especially of Madam Web. Talking to the 90s Saturday morning cartoon does Madam Web brilliantly. I had the Madam Web action figure from this series. So, it's just a shame that Sony doesn't seem to be caring too much about Spider-Man or what they can do with Spider-Man other than the video games. And I'm sure that makes them insane money, and I don't blame them for focusing on the video games. But, you do have a film franchise to keep alive, and they're just not holding up their end of the bargain. Who knows when or if we'll ever get the next Spider-Verse film. I'm fine if it takes longer, if you're not going to mistreat your artists, but I don't know what's going on with Sony, and it's been quite some time since I've heard anything about the next Spider-Verse film. So, we are getting Spider-Man Noir, which I'm a huge Spider-Man Noir fan. I've read every issue. I love that character. I love that interpretation. We'll see what Nick Cage does with it, because he's much older than the Spider-Man in those comics. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Nick Cage does with Spider-Man Noir. With that said, go back and watch some of these old Spider-Man cartoons. They're fun. They're well animated. You get to see some early computer animation stuff, but you also get to see Spider-Man fighting giant robots and saving the world. Or they just adapted so much. You get so many good characters from the comics show up in this series, and I'm glad we got the cartoon that we got, because this was incredibly profound on my life. I had recorded several episodes on VHS, and so the Captain America saga, where he saves Captain America from the time loop. I watched that, or I'd put that VHS on every time I had to clean my room. So, even now as an adult, it helps if I'm going to do some cleaning to just put on Spider-Man. It's a weird Pavlovian response, but hey, I've been doing it since I was a kid. So, with that said, hope you enjoyed this sketch. This was a fun one. Again, I was paying more homage to my action figure than the actual 90s show, but I enjoyed this sketch. If I was going to do it again, maybe I would have chose different villains for the background, Carnage and Venom. Not my personal favorites, but they're all right. Probably should have went with Goblin and Doc Ock or something. But hey, thank you for sticking it out, listening to my ramblings. Subscribe, please, if you enjoy what we're doing here. Subscribe. You can support me on patreon.com/DestinyComics. The link to my books are down below, where you could purchase everything from Flatfoot McGee to terrifyingly gruesome tales of horror. Everything's available down there. Um, you know, if you're enjoying these videos, please check out my art. Check out my other stuff. Check out my Instagram. You can go to webtoons.com and check out my webcomic, Galahad the Fallen. It's about knights in shining armor and Galahad, after the fall of Camelot, picking up a revenge quest to hunt down and kill his own father, Lancelot, whom he blames for the fall of Camelot. So, all that is available down below. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your support. And I hope you enjoyed these cartoons. There you have it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. Spider-Man is near and dear to my heart. Always has been, always will be. It came out in the 90s. The 90s Spider-Man cartoon really had a deep impact on me. But Universal Studios made a attraction for the cartoon. It was a roller coaster that with a computer screen and video played. I got to experience it several years ago, probably 13, 14 years ago. No, less than that, 11 years ago, on my honeymoon when I went to Florida. What's a Saturday morning cartoon that you wish had gotten a amusement park ride? But standing in the queue for the Spider-Man ride, and you're in the Daily Bugle office and everything's cartoon, I could have just stayed there for hours in line. I was upset the line was moving so fast because I wanted to look at all the stuff they had done. With that said, like and subscribe, and thank you.